Hello and welcome. We're going to be talking about the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake here. So, if you have not finished it yet, or you care about spoilers, now is your time to duck out and come back later after you have. I have just finished the game. I've replayed this chapter to get to the combat simulator just to be able to capture the footage, to be able to talk about it. But, let me start off by saying, because there will be all spoilers here, I do think I still would have enjoyed the game a bit more if it was a straight remaster, if it was all of the original game instead. But I still really enjoyed this game. It's one of my favorite Final Fantasy games in years. And I say that having really enjoyed 15, despite the problems with 15, right? I really, really love Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think they did such a good job with it. But you're here to talk about the ending. That's what we're here for. A lot of people are upset, and I understand why. The ending's very odd. It's not what I expected this to be at all. Fighting fate and destiny and trying to come away from it with a new story from there is not what I would have thought it would have done. But I don't think it's a bad thing per se. I do still wish the marketing showed more that this was a brand new game, because there's going to be a lot of people that go to play this that have only played the original, or that have never played the original even, and that are going to say, well, this is not that game that everybody's talked so much about. Where's the stuff with Wutai? What's going on there? Also, I still have a huge problem with the fact that it doesn't say Part 1 on it. But again, we're here to talk about the ending, so let's talk about the ending. Challenging fate, right? I think the idea is good. I think the idea of challenging fate is a cool one. I think you could definitely go some places with that. However, that said, get a little bit closer here. That said, I think the way you do it's really weird. Going into an alternate dimension almost and fighting a giant whisper is really strange. I'm not opposed to that. I do think fighting Rubrum and the other one and Crokea over and over and over again was kind of annoying. I would have liked maybe a couple different enemy types in there. But I get what they were going for sure. I understand. I just don't know that I liked that part of it. However, spectacle-wise, it was really cool. When you finally beat that thing by fighting the Rubrums over and over again, was pretty cool. And then the fight with Sephiroth, I think, was really good. That was a good fight. Sephiroth, obviously, way stronger than Cloud in that fight, but you're able to slowly bridge the gap and wear him down. And then you still don't win. You still don't beat Sephiroth. There's a lot about the ending that I think will depend on how the next game goes. Like, what does Part 2 have that makes that ending work better, you know? I think on the whole, I'm just kind of mediocre about the ending. It's fine. It's nothing amazing. It's not as good as the ending to the original, for sure. But it's also not the end of this story. It's just the end of this part of the story. So I guess we'll see how that goes. I'm really confused about the Zack thing. I don't feel like that was very well explained. Like, the Zack that you see that survives because of the changes that you made in Fighting Fate is, like, still, like, he's there, and Shinra is, like, the whole of Midgar is still being overrun by the Whispers while he's there. So that means it's happening at the same time. Is it a different timeline? Is Crisis Core another universe? Is it not part of the same universe? Or is this another universe? Because my understanding early on, based on what we saw with the Whispers, was that we had gone through the timeline once before, and the Whispers were trying to make sure we did it the right way again. That's what it looked like to me. That's what it seemed like. And it seemed like Sephiroth had the ability to mess with time a little bit, because he, like, stops time when you're talking to Aerith, when he first shows up there. But at the same time, like, there's some weird time thing going on with Crisis Core, with Zack there. And I don't think that's even necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know what the goal is there. And I won't know until we get Part 2. That said, I still really loved how it all ties together at the end. The idea of this has all happened before, and that's why we're getting the flash forwards that we got throughout the game. But now we're going to try and do it differently. It means that, of course, maybe Aerith will survive. I think that's too obvious, right? I think they won't do that because that one's too clear. Everybody assumes that what they'll do with it, and so I think instead they'll go with Aerith still dies, but somebody else gets to live. And obviously we got to see that Biggs got to live. which is very interesting to me. I like Biggs a lot in this, but I didn't think he would get to live. He had a really good death. I thought Wedge would live, and then we get to hear Wedge being thrown out a window. So I don't think, and this is what the rest of this video is probably going to turn into, I don't think the idea of striking out and doing something bad or something different is a bad idea. I think the idea of trying something new can be good. Because for me, 7 and 7 Remake are still two separate games. They're not the same thing. Again, I still would have preferred to have a straight remake of 7. I love the original 7. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But I still really like 7 Remake. And this new approach, for the most part, I think really works. There's a lot we still obviously don't know from the ending that will all depend on how it's handled in a sequel. But as it is right now, I'm very optimistic. But I also understand the people that aren't. I think the idea of Cloud and Zack meeting again is like right up my alley. I want that more than anything. But I also don't imagine that'll happen the way that I want it to. The idea that Sephiroth has these strange, weird powers from Genova, well, we knew that already. So it's not that big of a thing for him to be using them, you know? What happened in the first timeline that caused this to happen, you know, where everything reset? And what does this mean for the future? Is Cloud still going to wind up in a wheelchair and like, brain messed up? Or are things going to be very different now? It almost looked like Biggs had lost an arm there. What's going to happen with that? How does Dyne, how does Sid, how do all these other characters wrap into it? There's a lot we don't know. And again, a lot we won't know. But I think it ends on a positive note for that stuff of this could be really good. Now, it could also be really bad. It's very possible that everything falls apart. That they try to push for like we're going to do this and we're going to win by taking on all of this craziness and bring in Last Order and everything there too. But right now, it feels to me like it's just going to be more of the universe of 7, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think if the whole game would come out together, this end of Act 1 wouldn't even really bother people. People would probably be upset by it still because, well, what is it? You know, what is this change? But I don't think the change happens at the end. I think the change happens extremely early on when Aerith goes to get kidnapped and you see how things change. Because that's not how that scene went in the original, you know? The moment where Wedge falls off the tower, it's like, things are different now because Wedge gets back up again. He's not dead at the bottom of the tower. And so, I'm not upset with them going a different direction for sure, but I understand why people are. That said, again, I feel like I'm just repeating myself here. I would have preferred a straight remake of 7, but I can still play 7. I'm after this video, I'm probably going to boot 7 again and try to play through what'll be the next part. Because I still love original 7. I still want to know how Red plays. I want to know how Sid plays. I want to know how Yuffie plays. I want to know how Vincent plays. I want to see the rest of the story done here. There's a lot we haven't wrapped up the stuff with Hojo, you know? I think there is still a lot of reason to be excited even when people are mad. And my hope is that they land the landing, that they make it correct. They don't misstep right at the end like a lot of people feel like they already have with this ending. Let me talk a little bit about, because it's not a review of the game. There's a lot more. This is just talking about the ending. There's a lot more on my thoughts of the game. Let me talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that I liked. I loved the music. I love the materia still. They did a great job with that system. The way all the characters work together and their inter-character relationships are really, really good. I think this is maybe the best version of these characters together, and getting to see them slowly become a team over the course of the game, even Red and Aerith, right, is really good. For all of that, I think the ending is still really solid, even with all the stuff that I didn't necessarily enjoy. There was never a part where I was like, oh, come on. It was always just, okay, that's a decision to make. And so, for me, it'll entirely depend on how it comes out in the wash, you know, how it all comes together. But despite how much of a slog that last chapter was, I still really liked this ending. And I'm really positive on the future for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think this is definitely one of my favorite games this year. Could wind up being my game of the year. We'll see how the rest of the year goes, and I want to replay this at some point. But let me know your thoughts on the ending to Final Fantasy VII Remake in the comment section down below. I've been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum. And remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Final Fantasy VII Remake has to offer.